Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bourbon Note. I'm Ben, and this is my top 5 most disappointing allocated bourbons. Well, this list is going to be subjective, obviously. This is just my opinion, just like everything else on this channel. And it's also going to be narrowed down to just simply the allocated bourbons that I've had a chance to try. So there's plenty of them out there that I've never had before, so I really can't speak on those. So this is just from my personal experience. Let's get into the list. The first one that we got to go with, it's the obvious one, it's the basic one, it's BAM, Blanton's. So Blanton's, as everybody knows, is kind of the entry-level unicorn, where it's kind of the first one, at least for me it was when I first got into whiskey. It was like the first one that I ever heard of that was like this rare bottle, super hard to find. People were paying a couple $100 for it on the internet. So naturally, I thought it was going to be amazing. And the first time I had it, I thought it was really good. But the further you get into drinking bourbon, now if you like any of these bottles, by the way, that's great. I mean, you like what you like. Don't listen to me. If you like this bottle, keep drinking it by all means. This is, again, just my opinion, so I'm not trying to judge anybody. But the more and more you get into exploring different bourbons, you realize that this is just kind of a basic bourbon. It's really nothing special about it. It's 93 proof, aged around 6 years, Buffalo Trace product. It's fine, but to be perfectly honest, every time I have a pour of this is what I have in my glass right now, and I just had a sip before turning the camera on, I'm just more and more disappointed, like every single time I try this bottle, because it just, I don't know, it comes across as a pretty weak bourbon to me. So that's Blanton's. I think a lot of people just like to kind of hate on Buffalo Trace anyway, just because, you know, Buffalo Trace is kind of the distillery known for having the most allocated and kind of unicorn bottles that everybody hunts and pays secondary for. So it's easy to hate on this bottle just because of what it is, but I genuinely just don't think it's a great bourbon. And if I was hunting this down, I had never had it before, but I was fairly experienced in drinking bourbon. If I got a hold of this, and especially if I had paid secondary for it, I would have been really, really disappointed. And speaking of one that I didn't have until I was further into my kind of bourbon experience, and then I tried it and was massively let down by, BAM, another Buffalo Trace product. This is Elmer T. Now, these are single barrels, so they are going to vary. However, I've had 2 of these now, so I haven't had a whole lot of it, but both of them have just been wildly underwhelming. This is just an empty bottle. It wasn't even mine, actually. Greg and I did a review of it. It was fine. I think I probably liked it a little more back then, but I think we both had said in that review that I don't know if I would, if this was just on the shelf at the regular $40 price point that I think it's supposed to be, I don't think I would buy it. It's not something I would bother to keep on my shelf. Same with Blanton's, honestly. And then I had a pour of this in the Trash Palette Challenge with Troy and Laura from Baker Drinks. Go check them out. And there's all these different categories. You have to guess which whiskey is which. And I picked this as my least favorite one out of all of them. And I wasn't surprised when I found out it was Elmer T. I know some people really like this. I just have never, out of the few times I've had it, a couple times I've had it, there's just nothing special about it at all. In my opinion, you can go get an Evan Williams 1783. Replace either one of these, to be honest. I know that's a little harsh, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a 6-year, 90 proof bourbon. It competes. Anyway, I digress. That's for another video. Getting on to the next one, this one was actually given to me as a gift, and I very, very much appreciate the gift because it saved me the trouble and the money of buying the bottle. This is, BAM, Elijah Craig 18-year. And again, a single barrel product, so I know some people really like these and some people really are let down by them. It seems to be kind of a 50-50 thing. When you have a single barrel that's aged 18 years, I would imagine there's a really kind of vast difference that can take place over the 18 years within that one particular barrel. This is the only one I've had, I think. And so, you know, this one I just found, it's, what is the proof, 90 on this? Yeah, 90 proof. Greg and I had often said that bourbon either needs age or proof. If you've got a lower proof bourbon, sometimes a higher age can help bring some more flavor out. If you've got a lower age bourbon, sometimes a little higher proof, less water, and it can kind of help bring the flavors out as well. That did not happen here. And when I said this was given to me as a gift, actually, a friend of the show, Greg Ahrens, gave me this bottle because I told him I was going to buy one, and he happened to have two, and he basically said, save your money, just it's not worth it. I'll give you a bottle because I opened one of them and I don't like it, and I'm not looking forward to getting into the next one. So that was a very generous gift because this is a fairly expensive bottle at like the $150 price point, and I'm certainly glad I did not pay that for it. So the last two that I have here on the list are bottles that I don't actually have in my possession, but the first one is Caribou Crossing. So Caribou Crossing is a Canadian whiskey. It's not Buffalo Trace, but it's under the Sazerac umbrella. If you look at the bottle on it, it's actually a Rock Hill Farms bottle, which Rock Hill Farms is another Buffalo Trace product. And it's got a very similar top to the Blantons, but it's got a Caribou on it instead, hence the name. Also a single barrel product. This one ends up getting allocated and getting hunted and ends up in, if a store gets it, they'll usually put it in a raffle or something like that. It comes in a fancy box. This is a 3-year age stated 80 proof whiskey. I mean, Jim Beam White Label has better stats than that. And I know not everything comes down to stats, but at some point, at the $60 price point, and sometimes people paying a little bit over that on the secondary for it, and hunting it down and chasing it, getting into lotteries for it, it's a 3-year 80 proof bourbon. It's just bottom shelf bourbon in the bottle. I mean, it really is. It's rail bourbon that you're drinking, and you have so many better options at the same price point for sure. And even at like the $25 price point, there's way better options out there than that one. So again, I know not everything comes down to stats, but if I'm gonna pay $60 and hunt something down, you gotta come at me with something a little better than 3 years and 80 proof. Okay, last one on the list here. This one is Weller 12. So we've had Weller 12 on this channel. Greg and I reviewed it a couple years ago. We liked it. It's a fine bourbon. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's one of those ones where, it's carrying that 12-year age statement. It's a Weller product. Weller gets hyped up anyway. Weller, also Buffalo Trace. There's a trend here. But Weller 12 is just a basic 90 proof, 12-year age stated bourbon at the MSRP of like the $45 or $40, I think it is. Even at that price point, flavor-wise, you can do better for less money. I would still pick one up if I saw one for that price, just because they're hard to find and I want all the bourbons. But it's disappointing in the sense that it gets very, very hyped up. You see people paying hundreds of dollars for it, and it's really just a fairly basic bourbon. And as far as like the 12-year age statement on it, I mean, Elijah Craig barrel proofs, those are 12 years, or at least they used to be. I know some of them are a little bit less than that now. But I mean, you're getting a barrel proof 12-year age stated for the most part whiskey out of that for 70, 80 bucks. Far, far better deal than the Weller 12. If you like the 90 proof point and you like Weller 12, that's great. Nothing wrong with that. Again, it's not a bad bourbon at all. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just overhyped. You get this idea in your head of, this is going to be a great bourbon because it's got the higher age statement and everybody seems to be paying all this money for it. And it's just pretty basic. So anyway, folks, that's my top 5 disappointing, I was going to say overrated, overhyped, disappointing allocated bourbons. And again, these are just based on the ones I've had. There's plenty of them out there that I haven't had yet that I'm sure I would be wildly disappointed in. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what your disappointing experiences were when you finally got to try that unicorn allocated bourbon. Thank you very, very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. This has been the top 5 most disappointing allocated bourbons on the Bourbon Note. I'm Ben. We'll see you on the next one.